Around 40 crore people became jobless in 2020 across the world owing to the COVID. Out of this, as per an estimate by CMI, nearly 12 crore people lost their jobs in India during the lockout. Now, whenever there are major job losses anywhere in the world, one of the things that results is that we have a lot of forced entrepreneurs. Now, these are the people that, for whatever reason, become are without a job, and then by the time they look for another job, sometimes that gap could be longer. My name is Ravinder Bhan, and I want to discuss with a very powerful and a wonderful woman this evening on how does a woman handle a job loss, not in terms of looking for another job, but getting into a forced entrepreneurship kind of a situation. Now, many women do not necessarily choose entrepreneurship out of choice, but quite a few of them choose it by virtue of a force. I have with me Sujata Suri, a very reputed and capable and well-known wellness coach, a corporate manager, an entrepreneur, and a guide to a lot of women across the country with over 20 years of experience in various sectors. Welcome, Sujata, and I'll be very happy to have your views on this subject.
Thank you, Ravinderji. Such a pleasure to be here today. Yes, you're quite right. We're kind of driven to entrepreneurship because of the situations that we face in life. I became an entrepreneur many years ago. In fact, after 10 years of corporate career. That's because, I realized that I used to get to work at 9 a.m. and sharp, okay? And
Yes.
when the attendance registers would shut, there was no card swiping, away,
Right.
so on. There was no work from home. And I would leave work around 9 p.m. or sometimes even 10. And I had a very tiny little child then. And it used to break my heart, to see the little kid waiting for me at the reception of an empty office with the father, because they would come to pick me up. And she would sit with her coloring books and, just wait for me to get back home. So I just couldn't handle it. I thought it's really not fair. And I was driven to it because of the situation. Of course, I made a choice. And I have no regrets at all.
Are you saying that it is not about COVID? It is about when a woman really wants to have, what I may call me life, and
Correct.
she wants to be in the driver's seat, and she wants to control her life. That time she can really not be in employment for whatever variety of social reasons, but that is the time when she looks for entrepreneurship. Now, there could be two ways. Either she is driven to it by virtue of that choice, or she is driven to it by virtue of her inner feeling. So are we saying that it's not much to do with COVID?
I think so, because luckily, I think women are designed to multitask,
Okay.
and we can handle a lot of things very effortlessly. I would say probably better than our counterparts. And we can, given the opportunity and given the support, that's very important, to get support at home. If you have that, then it's, I think nothing can stop a woman, because we can, drive any business that we are passionate about.
That's a wonderful insight. Let me take you to another aspect of it. Now, a woman who has been, at a senior position in the corporate, and then she transitions into an entrepreneurship. What is the kind of, if I may say, disappointment, disgust, depression that she goes through in the initial months? Well, of course, men also do, but I would think that the kind of transitioning phase would be slightly different for women. Would you agree there? And if so, what is the kind of transition that takes place?
Yes, I wouldn't really call it a disappointment because you've obviously prioritized your, like in my case, I'd prioritized my child. So, I had that joy of being there for my child. However, at the same time, that time in those days, we were much younger and the month was much longer than the money. So, it was very, very important to, uh, get financially independent quickly in whatever profession we are choosing and make it sustainable. So, my immediate transition was not into health and wellness. That was always my hobby and passion, which I developed later. In between, I have done a lot of marketing and communications work, which is what I used to specialize in those days. Uh, Having said that, I think what is important is to keep your focus and shut all exit doors. You begin with an end in mind. So you know that, okay, for the next 6 months, I need to, stop looking at monster.com. We used to have all these, like
Yeah, I know. Yes.
Naukri.com and all that, and just, stay focused on your goal and get moving. And of course, ensure that you get those quick one or two orders. But it does, I mean, you have to give yourself a realistic 3 months. Uh, and those are the hard times, yes. And that is where family support comes in.
Sujata, I want to take this to another facet now. We have this initiative called Wonder Woman Entrepreneur, where I'm trying to send a message to the young women that look, it's not always going to be possible for you to leave the security of your paycheck. And if you have to make an entrepreneurial decision, it may not be a black and white situation like it used to be in the past. There are a lot of women who tell me that, Ravinder, I want to become an entrepreneur, but I can't really give up the security of a paycheck. And my advice to them is that in the initial stage, maybe at a smaller level, maybe in a slightly more modest way, without interfering with your work, without competing with your current organization, it will be a good idea for you to have an entrepreneurial experiment and actually start a business while you are in job. How would you respond to that?
I think that's a very good idea, and especially since nowadays workplaces are far more flexible. It's not, there's a lot of flexibility. And I must also, since you mentioned paycheck, let me give a bit of good news. When you're an employee, you get taxed in the beginning. And when you're on your own, you pay taxes only after you spend all the money that you have to for whatever, and you only pay on the profits. So there is a huge difference there. And that is actually something that we need to understand. And I think a bit of financial intelligence is necessary. I think women really need to, kind of understand, the whole game about, how you can save a lot of money. Actually, realistically, you're getting a lot more money in hand. Let's say if someone is earning 50,000, just as a small this thing, you earn 50,000 in the corporate career, and you earn 50,000 in your own business, you'll be a far richer person if you
Yes.
earn 50,000
Yes.
doing your own work. Yeah?
In fact, I have my own argument to the security of a paycheck. I tell people, men or women, I tell them the security in a job is dependent on when the employer decides to exercise the clause number 13, which says that either party can terminate this agreement with 1 month. So the security of a job is maybe 1 month, 3 months in certain cases. But in a business, no one can throw you out. But that being besides the point, despite all that, they don't agree with me and they say, no, I still want that security of the job check. We will not challenge them on that. But what you're telling me is something very interesting, is that, look, it's not only the amount of that paycheck, it's also the satisfaction of money that you have really, really earned. But if I may say so, on a very practical standpoint, the salary that we earn is an automatic check. The money that we earn in entrepreneurship is out of our sweat
Yes.
and toil. Well, I'm not trying to say that people who work are not do not deserve their salary check. I worked myself for about 30 years. I know I did that. But then we come to an interesting subject. Okay, if one has to start, maybe I would not say small, I would say modest, without giving up the job, and preferably starting from home. We identified three or four opportunities of which can be started from home and which will not need much of an investment. And we thought of this concept of urban farming. Now, Sujata, the reason I ask you this is that you have led several cooperatives in the agriculture sector. What do you see as the outlook for a fresh entrepreneur in urban farming, starting from home and then slowly growing it to a point where it can become big?
I see a huge opportunity. In fact, I'm very excited, and I would love to be, I would be, of course, attending your seminar because I intend to diversify as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be someone who's starting out for the first time, but even for people like me who are already into business, who would love to diversify into something, like this. And I see a huge opportunity. I mean, what can be better? You have control over the food that you eat. You have your, you are sure about the nutrition. There are no pesticides, and urban farming is catching up in a very, very big way. And it's such a therapeutic exercise, being with plants and tending to your plants and watching them grow and all of that. I mean, there's a lot of, it's a huge stress buster. So for people who have stressful jobs, that can be another, window of opportunity to de-stress. And there are so many pluses.
My own argument in favor. My own argument in favor of urban farming, particularly for women, is that women are naturally made to enjoy whatever is growing, be it a child or be it a plant. I'm not saying men are heartless, but the point is, for women, it gives a lot more satisfaction, and therefore they are able to focus and put more concentration on that and derive a lot of pleasure. And you brought out a very interesting point of that you get to eat good food. In my opinion, urban farming is the future of agriculture.
Yes.
Because over a period of time, we cannot have food production limited to those far off places, which are so away from the cities, and we imagine that it's going to be so long away. We're going to be growing our own food, and that is the concept. I might just add here, it's very nice you are saying that you would attend the seminar. I would like you to advise the ladies there. I would have you as one of the facilitators. But one thing which we are going to do here is that we're not merely going to talk about the technology of urban farming or why it is good for you or why is it a good thing to have. We're going to give actual numbers of what is the kind of investment you will need to make. What are your sources of funding? What are the government support and subsidies that are available? When will you start returning your investment? So that you are able to make a comparison between if you are currently working or you are currently in another business, you are able to make a comparison as to when do I need to make that switch and become a permanent urban farmer. Would you think that regardless of the investment in the initial stages, ultimately urban farming would be more profitable for a woman entrepreneur than many of the other options?
Of course, because the environment is, far more controlled, and it's. I think from whatever little I've read about it, I think that there's a lot of it which is under your control. You also, do not need to depend on weather, the vagaries of weather, and that is a challenge in agriculture. And you can actually, use all the technology that's available to make it absolutely, what should I say, to make sure that you're using very little water. You don't use a lot of water in urban farming. That's my reading. Of course, I'll get to know more.
I'll just give you 3 quick points on what are the advantages of urban farming. Number one, you don't need soil.
Yeah.
You grow everything in water. In hydroponics and aquaponics, you grow everything in water. Now, you don't need running water in terms of fountains and streams and kiloliters of water. You need a certain amount of water which gets recycled. And number three is perhaps more significant. You have no use of pesticides. Then you rightly pointed out that you are not dependent on the vagaries of weather. For example, what we have seen in India and many other countries is that if, for example, the monsoon fails, the whole crop is destroyed. The farmer becomes penniless. Now, this is independent of those vagaries. And on a smaller point, you don't have rats, rodents, and other pests eating away
Yes.
your crop. So these are some of the major advantages. Getting back to the subject, I want you to send out a message here today to the younger women, who are in their 20s, 30s, early 40s. What would you recommend to them as a better choice between, if I may say so, dhakke khawing in looking for jobs and becoming a self-made hunter?
Well, I would always, having seen both sides of the, spectrum, traveled widely actually across the spectrum, I would suggest definitely I'd go for the latter any day. There's no job that can draw me back to that office with whatever paycheck, because there is no price for freedom. You are your own boss, and actually it's not so easy for people who are employed to visualize that. But just imagine, okay, you may not be driving. You may, if you work that hard, you could be. It's a choice between, say, a Mercedes and that's what people drive nowadays, an Audi with, say, an Innova or, something like that. That would be the trade-off. However, the number of outings, the number of vacations, doing what you want, following your dreams, passions, your hobbies, and working as much. If you work as hard as you work in the corporate sector, if you invest that kind of time in your own business, you'll do a lot more, because you're actually, we know how the thing works in the corporate, right? You need to justify 10 times your salary. So imagine how much you would be earning if all that money had to come to you. So
yeah, I normally give an example to working executives, men and women, in the large MNCs, and I tell them that, look, if the turnover of the company is so many $100 million, I will imagine that 99% of that is not because of you, is because of the organization. But that 1% turnover is due to you. Now calculate that 1% and see that is the amount of money which you are contributing to somebody else. I don't mean to be selfish, but that is the amount of money which you have the potential to earn for yourself. That was a very nice message. And Sujata, thank you very much for being here this evening with me. And I would like to give a message to the ladies out there. Give it a trial. You never know what you could be missing out on. And as an entrepreneur, you are a more powerful person. You are a more empowered woman than you are as an employee.